Hi everyone, my name is Matt. I'm the youth and family pastor of Cornerstone Church in Marshfield. I'm here today with your Cornerstone Connection, a daily devotional. So today we're going to find ourselves in the book of Numbers, and we're going to go to chapter 27. If it's your first time joining us, please know at Cornerstone we are making our way through the entire Bible in 2 years. We're reading through it. And so every day we are in two different books. Currently, we're in the book of Numbers, and we're also in the book of Psalms. And so again, today I'm going to take us to Numbers chapter 27. Now, before I read any of the text there, I just want to set it up by saying this. When we think about leaders and what it looks like to be a good and noble leader, what comes to mind for you? What kind of ideas, what kind of characteristics or qualities does a good and noble leader have? I think, unfortunately, in our current culture, and maybe for all time, just because of the brokenness of humanity and the sin that is within each and every person, we kind of get the wrong idea of what it looks like to be a leader and what the purpose of a leader is. We might think we want to be a leader because that means we're in control and we have the power and we get all of the notoriety. And yet, when God calls people to lead, what we see is He's often calling them to serve and to think beyond themselves, well beyond themselves. In fact, as we see through Christ, we see the ultimate servant leader, one who led by serving and cared most about his followers. And I would also submit to us today that as we have made our way through the book of Numbers and we've watched the Israelites making their way out of Egypt and towards the promised land with all kinds of problems in between, we get really good leadership lessons from the man named Moses. And today is just another illustration of why Moses is the leader that God chose. So let me read for us a little bit out of Numbers chapter 27. I'm going to start in verse 12, and let me just apply a thing or two at the end. Here we go. So Numbers chapter 27, verse 12. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go up this mountain in the Abiram range and see the land I have given the Israelites. After you have seen it, you too will be gathered to your people, as your brother Aaron was. For when the community rebelled at the waters in the desert of Zin, both of you disobeyed my command to honor me as holy before their eyes." So God is telling Moses again, you're not going to enter the promised land. This land that you have led the people of Israel to enter, you're not going to get to enter it because of your disobedience to me back in the past. And here's what can happen for leaders, is we can get a little bit salty and say, but God, I've done this, I've done that, I've done all these things for you and for these people, and you're not going to let me in, and start to blame and shame and get upset, right? But check out what Moses does here, verse 15. Moses said to the Lord in response to that, "May the Lord, the God of the spirits of all mankind, appoint a man over this community, the people of Israel, to go out and come in before them, one who will lead them out and bring them in, so the Lord's people will not be like sheep without a shepherd." We don't see any grumbling from Moses. We don't see any complaining. We don't see any blaming or shaming. Instead, after God tells this man who has led this grumbling and complaining people through this desert to the promised land, we see a man who says, "But God, just make sure you have a leader for these people. Make sure you help me pass the baton well to a leader that will lead them well into the promised land." And as you continue reading, let me encourage you to do so. Verse 18 and on, we'll see that Joshua is that appointed leader. And I love how we see in Moses the heart of Jesus Christ all the way back in the Old Testament as he's leading the people through the desert. He says in verse 17, let me read it again, "So that the Lord's people will not be like sheep without a shepherd." You might recall, if you've read the Gospels in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus having compassion on a crowd because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Here in Moses, we see the heart of Christ all the way back in the Old Testament, in this desert of people wandering, trying to get to the promised land. He has a heart for these people who are like sheep without a shepherd, and he doesn't want them to be that. Friends, if we're going to be leaders who are good and noble and honor God, we have to keep in mind this lesson we learned from Moses today. It's not about us. It's not about us. First, it's about God. And second, it's about the people that we're leading. Let's do it in a way that shows compassion towards them and leads them in humility. And let's keep in mind it's not about us, and that there's going to be someone after us to lead. And we want to set them up as best as possible. Have a great day, friends. We'll see you next time on the Cornerstone Connection.